The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the David Pakman Show. I am David Pakman in New York City. I am joined by producer Louis Motamedi in the Austin bureau of the David Pakman Show in Austin, Texas. Louis, I hate to have to start with something negative for our first New York City show at the New York City headquarters, which, by the way, we'll do a tour video of. It'll be about a 30-second tour because it's a very, very small space, but it'll be a tour nonetheless. I got an email about our coverage of the Army Private First Class, formerly known as Bradley Manning, now known as Chelsea Manning. And I'm going to read an email from John, and this is representative of many emails that I received about this. Here's the email. John says, I've been thinking about becoming a member. However, I must say that I will not give any money to your program until you correct your story aired earlier this week in regards to Chelsea Manning. Despite knowing her wishes to be referred to as Chelsea and adopting the female pronouns, your show, intentionally or unintentionally, spectacularly failed to honor those wishes. I'm astonished by this, as your show is otherwise very progressive. I got a similar email from Ayla and a number of other people. We were wrong. There's really just no excuse on this. The correct thing to do from the get-go would have been to start referring to her as Chelsea Manning with female pronouns. There was hesitation, and this is not an excuse, but merely an explanation as to the thought process we had, that if we just simply say Chelsea Manning, she, a lot of people who follow this show, as many follow news programs off and on, and may not be up to speed with the story, might not know who we were talking about. But again, that's not an excuse. We simply should have said Chelsea Manning, formerly known and convicted as, charged as Bradley Manning, and that would have kind of made it clear. And there's really just no excuse. That is the correct thing to do. It doesn't matter. We didn't make this argument, but the argument some were making that it is legally, her name is still Bradley Manning, and as such, that is okay to say. I don't really care about that. Chelsea Manning identifies as a woman. And Louis, while I know you understand the complexities of people not knowing who is Chelsea Manning, we do strive to do what is correct on this program, and I can do nothing else but say we were wrong to do it the way we did. And going forward, we're going to make every effort to refer to her as Chelsea Manning. I don't know that I can issue any more specific of an apology, and I don't think I need to walk it back in any way. I'm simply saying we covered it the wrong way.
There's also the simple fact of referring to someone for so long by the same name that you don't just immediately and quickly think to call that person by their new name when you've been using the other one for so long. I know this because I was in a band with a transgender person, and I had the same thing happen to me. I think Chelsea Manning would be insulted if she knew that we were guilty of this? I don't think so at all.
All right. Well, in any case, you may be right, you may not be right. Chelsea Manning probably doesn't care too much right now about how we're covering the minutia of her transition. But that being said, it's important to us, and it's clearly important to our audience. So we're going to make every effort. And I apologize for the way we covered it. We're turning over a new leaf, and we will continue. Fukushima, if you have not been if you've not been following what's been going on with the Fukushima radiation disaster at the Japanese nuclear power plant, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview, and it is very, very disturbing. Over the weekend, a friend of mine said, you've got to follow up on what's happening with Fukushima. There's problems with a number of animals on the West Coast. There seem to be radiation issues with kids' thyroids on the West Coast, and any number of things. And there's a lot of stuff going on. Number one, just as a point of kind of official nomenclature, Japan's Nuclear Regulation Authority has actually increased the rating of the radioactive water leak at the plant to a level 3. Level 3 is a serious incident. Before it was level 1, an anomaly or anomaly. By the way, I get a lot of criticism for saying anomaly. Look at the official Oxford English Dictionary. You will see that pronunciation along with anomaly. Just a little point of reference, Louis, in case people want to email me about that. The West Coast has had seafood affected, no question about it. So more than a year ago, 15 out of 15 bluefin tuna that were tested in California waters were in fact contaminated with radioactive cesium from Fukushima. The Associated Press reports that both scientists and native elders in British Columbia say sockeye salmon numbers have decreased significantly. And this may be one of the most disturbing parts of this altogether, Lewis, which is that there's a new study, April of 2013, which suggests that the nuclear fallout has led to significantly elevated levels of congenital thyroid disease among infants born on the West Coast and Hawaii. This is an absolute disaster, as was the case with Deepwater Horizon and is often the case with oil spills, Lewis. The news is never representative of how bad the situation really is.
Yeah, especially at first. It was a joke at first, the coverage of Fukushima. And like with disasters of this nature, I mean, the effects last for decades. It's catastrophic. I feel really bad for the people of Japan affected by this. And I feel bad for the people who are going to be eating some of this contaminated seafood without realizing it.
That's the other side of the story, Lewis, which is that there have been some articles which have not received widespread coverage saying Pacific Ocean seafood is done. I mean, it is done. Nobody should eat it. Once people find out, as an industry, Pacific Ocean seafood should completely disappear. The problem is if people aren't informed enough to stop demanding and stop consuming that seafood, the business interest, right? Capitalism will continue to provide that seafood.
Yeah, no doubt. Everyone who watches the show knows how hard it is to inform the masses of important things that big companies don't want them to know about. But you know what? Overall, I don't think this still changes my mind about nuclear power. I still think nuclear power is a great option in certain places and in certain circumstances.
Maybe so. We've had that conversation before. I don't want to open that can of worms now, but interesting news over the weekend that Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant, very close to the former headquarters of the David Pakman Show, is going to be decommissioned and will be closing after much controversy. So we'll talk about that more at another point, and that's a different conversation to have. And just because I'm not addressing it now does not mean I agree with Lewis. So please, no emails saying I'm on board with Lewis that nuclear is great. I have mixed feelings about it for a number of reasons. There's a measles outbreak at a vaccine-denying church. A lot of people are not going to be surprised by this. For several days now, there's been basically state officials have been sounding the alarm about a measles outbreak in North Texas. And as of Friday, there had been 9 confirmed cases. The number is going to continue to grow, of course. The epicenter of the outbreak is Tarrant County, which has now confirmed 10 cases. And this is, of course, it's been tracked, this is just amazing, to Eagle Mountain International Church. And Pastor Terry Copeland Pearsons delivered a sermon a few days ago, and she's dancing all over the place, Lewis, because she's realizing that even though they've been linking the MMR vaccine to autism at that church, something that's been widely debunked by any number of scientific authorities and experts, she now has to kind of start walking it back and saying, there may be a place for vaccination, and as it turns out now, there's actually a vaccination clinic that is being held nearby. I find these stories amazing because in this particular case, the MMR autism link is not exclusive to religious groups, right? We've seen that link from a number of people, including Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who actually had a financial interest in the measles-only vaccine. So that was, of course, an apparent conflict of interest there. But on the religious side, all the time, Lewis, we hear about parents choosing prayer over actual medical treatment. Here we see that you're not supposed to get vaccinated. It's amazing to me that this continues to happen. And it's actually a crime to give medical advice if you are not a doctor. And we don't ever really see prosecutions along those lines here. Do you think we should?
We definitely should. And it's a shame that in the cases of where those children unfortunately died because of the parents chose prayer over medicine, there were charges pressed against the parents. That's a little bit different of a situation, but still I think charges should be pressed here. And this is just another terrible example and a wake-up call to people. Unfortunately, stupidity and religion is a horrible combination.
Yeah, and again, the charges that were filed against parents, it was for negligence, not actually for giving medical advice while not being a doctor. Right. Very, very different situation. Charges were pressed, no question about it. Absolute disaster. And again, every time we see these little pockets of outbreaks for diseases that we thought were well controlled, it very often is linked either to non-medical treatment for religious reasons and or non-vaccination for not correct, not accurate reasons for not getting vaccines. And it's very, very sad, particularly to those people who are infected with the diseases. Let's talk about a naked church camp counselor. Not something I know much about, but certainly we've covered a lot of this stuff on the show. I was never an overnight camping guy, Lewis, and I don't think you were either. But at least at some of these camps, there's a lot of weird stuff going on. In this particular case, according to the Chattanooga Times Free Press, a 21-year-old pastor's son is not going to be allowed to work with children anymore or hold a leadership position at the Vineyard Community Church in Chattanooga. He's been charged with simple battery, 2 counts of third-degree cruelty to children, and sexual assault. What exactly happened, Lewis? Well, he climbed on top of a 13-year-old camper and placed his penis on the boy's crotch while other boys were watching. He also slapped the child's face. What's amazing, and this is not going to surprise a lot of our audience, the church said they believe that this was a case of horseplay gone wrong, which they deeply regret. Is getting naked as a counselor and putting your penis on kids just kind of like it started as horseplay and it went wrong? Like, at what point does it stop being horseplay? Is it when the pants come off? Is it when the underpants come off? Is it when you run towards the kid holding your penis? Is it when you put your penis on the kid? Like, where's the line, Lewis, for where the horseplay stopped and something went wrong?
Well, I don't think horseplay was ever involved. I think you have to consider intent here, and clearly, horseplay was never part of the plan for this camp counselor. But why can't the church just say, "This is terrible. We're going to get rid of this person. This person will never have any affiliation with the church or our camp ever again, and we will continue to look for people like this and expel them"? Why can't they say that?
Well, instead they suggested going to like the counseling that's offered within the church, and the mom did the right thing, which is she went to the police, because very, very often we see this happen within the Catholic Church. We see this happen sometimes with sexual harassment and rape within the military. We've talked about the chain of command in other or large corporate environments where people are kind of like pushed, sometimes overtly, sometimes kind of implicitly, into handling it with the internal process that exists when these are crimes that we're talking about. And the mom did 100% the right thing by going to the police. And Lewis, by the way, in case anyone was wondering, this is a pro-family camp.
Oh, of course. I'm sure they are pro-family and whatever else these churches claim to be that is not true at all.
Right. All right, let's take a break. Today's bonus show is going to be explosive, Lewis. I hope you're prepared for it. Lewis picked up a new bar job in Austin, Texas. And on his first day working, he was recognized by a David Pakman Show fan who apparently was incredibly drunk. So we're going to talk about that on the bonus show. We'll talk about the move to New York City. I've got a bunch of great stories. And we also actually have extra news stories as well on the bonus show. So if you're not yet subscribed, davidpakman.com/membership. Sign up, #1 funding source for this show, and you'll get access to lots of great features and extras like the infamous bonus show hosted and produced by producer Louis Motamedi. Back after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Our membership program is made possible in part by liberalbias.com. Some statistics do suggest that the economy is improving in spite of having a liberal president, but those statistics obviously have their own liberal bias. Find out more at liberalbias.com. Today's new member of the day is Cynthia Marshall. Cynthia, couldn't thank you enough for being a David Pakman Show member. As of course you know, the program that we do is mostly funded by individual viewers, not by big corporations. And you too can become a member at davidpakman.com/membership. Really bizarre clip from Alex Jones. We haven't talked about Alex Jones for a while. I haven't shown you any clips of Alex Jones for a while. This came across my desk yesterday. Alex Jones saying that he has been attacked racially, and by that he means attacked by people who are not of the same race as him, 40 times. Take a look at this clip.
I've been racially attacked by black people, probably, let's not exaggerate, 35 times. I've been racially attacked by Hispanics, let's not exaggerate, 5 times. Let me tell you, that's when you really get hurt bad. And, compound fractures, you name it. And, oh yeah, you get hurt real bad. And the whole point is I am sick of it. I am sick of the fact that I have been racially attacked over and 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 over. And the politically correct thing to do is just offer your kids up to have their noses broken and their eyes black and their bones broken. Because the one thing you don't do is ever go stand up against it.
First of all, Lewis, do you even believe this? Like, let's put aside the fact that Alex Jones is using this as an excuse to kind of talk about how minorities are violent and all sorts of stuff. What are you doing in life that you're getting into 40 physical fights? I mean, 40 physical fights. He's like 35, 36 years old or something like that. Do you believe it, number one? And how do you even get into that many fights?
First of all, do you know how long he's been doing his show?
No, I don't.
All right. I just never remember seeing him with a black eye or any bruises or scrapes on his face or anything of that sort. I mean, maybe he's talking about when he was really young. I think it's probably complete bull, just like most of the things he says. And this is just a way to further, polarize this country.
Yeah, I don't think Alex Jones is like personally a racist. He has minority co-hosts and correspondents on his show, at least one guy that I remember. It's just kind of it's a weird story to tell. And even if we take him at his word, has anyone in our audience been in 40 fights? And let's take it a step further. If you believe Alex Jones has been in 40 fights just with black and Hispanic people, we can only assume he's been in some fights with other white people too, because it would be weird if you're the type of person who gets into fights. It would be weird to have 40 with blacks and Hispanics and not a single fight with a white person, as ridiculous as it is. Has anyone in our audience been in 40 or 50 fights in your life? I mean, I've been in probably 2 fights, and they were all when I was younger than 18. They all lasted about 10 seconds. And it's just so hard to imagine, no matter where you live, if you're just busy working and doing a show the way Alex Jones is, how are you in situations where you're attacked 40 times? I don't get it.
Right. I honestly, if I had to guess, I'd say that that he was probably the aggressor in the majority of those, if it was true. But unless you're a boxer, yeah, it seems pretty ridiculous.
That's the other thing. I also don't think, in spite of Alex Jones's on-air persona, I just don't think he's the type of guy to instigate fights either, Lewis.
I don't know. I think if he's in a bar, has a few drinks, and starts going on rants, that it could be pretty easy.
All right, let's get to Hatriot Mail. This week's Hatriot Mail is very, very odd. I don't really have any way to explain it or tell you what it is. I'll just play it, and then you'll see if you can make heads or tails out of it. Hatriot Mail is, of course, really angry email that we get, read by a professional voiceover artist. Take a listen to this.
Your show is terrible, and I would love to come on it and debate you on the topic of homosexuality and the Christian church, since you act as if you are such an expert on the subject.
Right. I like that. I like the inclusion of incorrect grammar in Hatriot Mail. The guy said, "Sense I act like I am an expert," SENSE. And I think that, again, Lewis, I'll say it again, keep maintaining the incorrect grammar and spelling is kind of like a key component to a very good Hatriot Mail piece. You have to translate that to the audience.
Yeah, this one was a great one. You have the vagueness of a lot of these messages and the incorrect grammar. It's great.
Couple of strange stories, one out of Texas, one out of Austin, Texas, in fact. I'll get to that one second. First, a possible Republican candidate for ex-San Diego Mayor Bob Filner's office is going to have to explain why multiple people have reported seeing him masturbating at urinals in the city council's men's room. This is just an outrageous story, Lewis. According to the San Diego Reader, Republican Carl DeMaio was accused of masturbating in the bathroom in 2009, and he never answered the charges, but rather just kind of had the entire thing hushed up. He was running to represent northern San Diego in Congress, but he announced Friday after Bob Filner resigned that, hey, he's actually thinking about maybe trying to run for San Diego mayor. And the funny thing, Lewis, is that even though a representative for Carl DeMaio has said that it's absolutely ridiculous or something like that, everybody knows about this. Like, you ask anybody who knows anything about this. For example, Rex Dalton wrote, "There's never been a public accounting of how during 2009, DeMaio allegedly would leave the San Diego Council dais during meetings to masturbate in a men's room, even known by elected officials and suspected by members of the media." Then they were asked about City Councilwoman Marty Emerald said everyone knew about it. Who knew about it? Everyone. Everyone knew about it. She also said she encountered another member of the city council in the hallway one day and said Ben Hueso was in a state of shock, face red, eyes bulging. I said, "You look like you just saw the devil." And he said, "DeMaio is masturbating in the middle of the room." What do you make of this, Lewis?
I think this is a story we've heard before, and I completely believe it. And what is this guy doing? Trying to get into office? I mean, cut your losses, get out of there.
No. Not what is he doing getting into trying to get into office. What is he doing masturbating in the men's room? That's the key question.
Well, no. See, David, come on. You know that we can't actually answer that question. That's a separate matter. But someone who does that clearly should not be running for office.
There's an incredible story being reported by KXAN, which is an Austin, Texas news station. And it turns out that, I don't even know how to explain this, Lewis. I might need your help with this. Claims were being made that protesters who had showed up to advocate for abortion rights at the Austin Capitol back in July, the allegation was made by some right-wingers that they showed up with human feces in jars, apparently, and they were going to be using it to throw at police or as part of their protest. And as this story started making its way through the journalistic channels, people started wondering, well, is there any evidence that there was any human feces anywhere at all? And it appears that this was just a lie, Lewis. DPS Director Stephen McCraw said in an email at the time, "I'm tired of reading that we made this stuff up. Let's get the photos we have to members of the media. Does anyone realistically believe we would fabricate evidence to support a political agenda?" Well, yeah, it kind of happens all the time that evidence is fabricated and made up examples are given to kind of justify any sort of action against protesters. And after DPS put out a statement that human waste was being thrown around, nobody was able to find any evidence of it. Nobody was arrested on it. You would think, Lewis, that if somebody was throwing feces around, they would be arrested. No.
That is a crime. Yeah. I mean, certainly. And especially if they're in like glass jars. I mean, that's pretty dangerous too.
Well, then that's the other question. If it's in glass jars, clearly it would be visible. Where's the confiscated evidence? Absolutely none. Nothing was confiscated. Nobody was arrested. No when the police were asked, well, didn't you take photos of the feces throwers at least? They said, no, we were too busy controlling the feces throwers to take pictures of the feces throwers. I just hope, it appears that this is completely false and fabricated. Nobody was throwing feces around, Lewis. And we can only hope that this story gets as much coverage as the initial reports that feces was being thrown around. But as we know, that is not going to get much coverage. The correction never seems to get as much attention.
No. Pretty elaborate with the feces in jars and throwing. It's entertaining, if anything.
Yeah. And of course, yet another way in which nonviolent protesters who are advocating on the behalf of what they believe should be public policy are marginalized and ad hominem attacked and all of that stuff. Certainly no surprise at all. Let's take a break. Coming up next, I've got Dan Weber coming up next. He's the founder of the American the Mature Americans, the Association of Mature American Citizens. That's what it is, Lewis. Anyway, he thinks Obama's being deceptive about claims regarding the economy. I don't know if I agree with him or not. I'll talk to him, and then we will see after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Joining me today is Dan Weber. He's the founder of the Association of Mature American Citizens. Dan, I read the piece by AMAC saying that you feel that President Obama is touting economic growth in a deceptive way. So let's just get right into it. What specific claims made by the president or his administration do you find to be deceptive?
Basically, he's been out there in the hustings saying that the economy is good. Now, it is true the stock market has gone up, but other than that, all the other true economic indicators are poor, especially the gross national product.
So let's start there. What specifically do you find to be displeasing about the gross national product? And then further, what kind of points of reference are you using to say this is a good target or this is what I would like to see?
Okay, I'm actually reading a chart which it's from a cluster stock, which is the chart of the day, and it's the effect of the fiscal stimulus on the gross national product. And it just shows that since the stimulus in 2009, we actually had an increase in 2009 until the first quarter 2010, and then it went down dramatically, and it's been actually decreasing. And why I like that chart is it illustrates the true, what I call the true domestic product.
Well, but let's stop there because what specific numbers are you looking at? Tell me, because if we're going to make comparisons, it would be good to say,
Sure.
Well, what was the growth rate and what is it now and what's displeasing about
Exactly.
that? Yeah.
In the first quarter 2010, the growth rate was 1.5%. In the fourth quarter of 2011, for example, it was minus 1.5%. Since then, it's been up and down, leveling, but again, in the minus factor.
Okay, so what in your mind could President Obama be doing differently? So you say, from what you're saying, it sounds like you're saying that stimulus did not work. Do you
Right.
know, had that stimulus not been done, that mathematically speaking, those numbers would be even worse? I mean, it's just basic economics 101. What would you like to have done differently if not the stimulus that would have made those numbers higher? Very specifically.
Real simple, David. Instead of giving the money to government, which he did to create jobs, he should have given the money to free enterprise. For example, if he had offered companies tax incentives for hiring new workers, and for example, now if a company invests in their company, they have to borrow the money. Well, the government could have loaned the money tax-free to any enterprise who was going to hire people. To me, that was such a simple economic solution, and why nobody did that is beyond me.
Now, what do you mean that the stimulus was used for the government to hire people? Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, what he did, as you know, he tried to get the shovels digging into the earth and started with these federal projects. And to me, that was temporary money. Number one, a lot of the jobs so-called created, quote, and or saved, remember that one, were teachers' jobs and jobs who work for public unions. So to me, it was a payback of the election campaign to the unions.
Yeah, but Dan, I think that we've got a lot of stuff just flat out factually wrong here. I mean, I'll give you my opinion of how
Sure.
I see this, and you tell me where I'm wrong. Number
Sure.
one, a lot of those federal infrastructure projects were still contracted out to private companies. So you were giving money to private companies through government projects. But further, I think the most telling data that you seem to be missing is that for all of the talk for years from conservatives about reducing the size of government, President Obama has actually reduced the number of government employees net. There are less real net government jobs today than when President Obama took over, and there are more private sector jobs today than when President Obama took over. George W. Bush, on the other hand, hold on a second, Dan. George W. Bush, on the other hand, exploded the size of government and the number of government jobs. Why aren't conservatives giving President Obama credit for reducing the number of government jobs?
Okay, well, two reasons. Number one, the average pay of the federal worker has skyrocketed so that it's 30-40% higher than for private enterprise. So the cost of government has not gone down.
But that's not happened under if the 30 to 40% number has not happened under President Obama only. And number two, you're not taking into consideration, if you remove inflation adjustments from that, it is far lower. It seems like an irrelevant statistic when discussing President Obama, which is what your article sought to do.
Yeah, well, the reason really is if you look at the problem we're facing, in AMAC's opinion, is the national debt and the deficit.
Are you aware that President Obama has reduced the deficit more during a 4-year period than any 4-year period in the last 60 years? Are you aware of that fact, Dan?
That fact is incorrect.
It is not incorrect. Explain to me how it's incorrect.
You're talking about the national debt or you're talking about the deficit?
I'm talking about the deficit.
Okay, so what you're saying is the increase in the deficit has decreased.
That's not true, actually. This is the type of kind of kabuki math that's often used. This was the Congressional Budget Office and PolitiFact examined this claim from President Obama, and there is no question that if you go back over 60 years, the biggest deficit decrease during any 4-year period was experienced under President Obama. Full stop. And I don't blame you for not knowing because so many people have no idea.
It was under President Clinton that the biggest deficit decrease in modern history.
No, Dan, it's just not the case. Just you need to research this. In the last 60 years, President Obama, the largest deficit decrease. If you're not going to agree with just basic facts, it'll be hard to discuss it. Let me take one step back because it sounds like you're just not going to agree with me on the facts, and that makes it kind of complicated.
Yeah, where did you get those facts from, David? I'd love to check them because that's certainly everything I've been looking up doesn't say that.
You and the audience should Google PolitiFact, Barack Obama, largest budget deficit decrease 60 years. It will come up. But in the last minute and a half or so that we have left,
sure,
what would you like to see President Obama do in the rest of his second term, thinking proactively, not to try to make him look bad, but rather a solution, something he could do that in your opinion would improve the economy?
Okay, first of all, like I said, he should promote private jobs by changing the tax structure. Increasing the taxes was a mistake. The people who have small businesses are paying higher taxes now, about 7% more. And because of that, they're going to hire less people.
That's incorrect, Dan. I mean, again, we seem to be at such a fundamental disagreement about basic economics. It's widely known that if you decrease the top marginal tax rate on the richest Americans, they don't hire more people. They save that money. And in fact, there was just a big study put out showing that the top 1% are hoarding cash at alarming rates. They are not investing. It is not leading to any more hiring.
See, what you're doing is you're comparing Obama's friends, which are the billionaires, the Bill Gates, the Buffetts. I'm talking about
that's two people, Dan. Dan, that's two people.
The average working people who started a small business, a family business, they're looking to hire people. Let me tell you something. When they get more money, they don't sock it away. They put it back into their businesses.
All right, Dan.
My daughter would love to do that, and the government just raised their taxes about 7%.
Unfortunately, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and your daughter, whatever it is that they may want to or be doing, are not representative of every single study which shows that rich people save their money when they get a tax cut. We're just not agreeing, but it's a very, very interesting conversation. I've been speaking with Dan.
And keep talking, because the more the people out there learn, that you and I will learn, the better off the whole country will be. God bless you.
Hopefully people learn something. Dan Weber, Association of Mature American Citizens. Thank you for being on today.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
We've been covering the incredibly anti-gay laws in Russia, particularly in the context of the upcoming Olympics and in terms of the reaction that they're getting around the world. And I don't know if I'm shocked or just surprised, but Brian Fisher is now actually saying he likes Russia's anti-gay law. I'm not surprised because he likes an anti-gay law. I'm surprised because he's saying he likes something Russia is doing. Watch this.
There's a lot of reasons for what Russia's doing here. I think part of it actually comes from their Christian heritage. They're trying to scramble their way back to some approximation of Christian morality. They're a long way from getting there. Don't misunderstand me. But I think it's part of it. They understand that homosexual behavior is a moral evil among teenagers. Now, they need to get to the point where they recognize it's a moral evil for anybody, but at least they're ahead of us on recognizing that it's a moral evil to propagandize this lifestyle among teenagers.
So this is just such obvious cherry picking, Lewis, because as we know, Brian Fisher hates Muslims. He talks about how Muslims are evil, they're destroying the world, they blah, 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 all that stuff. And certainly Brian Fisher does not like Russia as a matter of principle, but he's cherry picking here one specific issue where he says, hey, they're anti-gay, and this is kind of the type of thing we're trying to do. And what's amazing to me is that people like Brian Fisher could find many countries around the world that are incredibly anti-gay as a matter of policy. The problem is most of those are going to be fundamentalist Muslim countries with very fundamentalist regimes. And Brian Fisher can't really say that he likes what they're doing because while he is incredibly anti-gay, he has to balance his anti-gayness with his anti-Muslimness and the kind of anti-anything other than Christianity-ness. And it creates a real conundrum for guys like this, doesn't it?
It is a huge problem, being a total xenophobe and hating everything in the world. I mean, yeah, it seems complicated. I almost feel bad for the guy. I think maybe he should move to Russia because It seems like the place for him. I mean, Russia has plenty of Christians, right?
Well, that's the thing. It's so funny because taking apart the piece that it is called Islam, a lot of guys like Brian Fisher essentially want a Christian version of the Sharia law that they could experience in many Muslim countries. And there seems to be this complete disconnect between being against Islam, but at the same time wanting very similar types of things, laws based on religion and public policy based on religion, and the double standard. It just, I don't know, we've been observing it for a while, and Brian Fisher saying Russia's doing the right thing here is quite funny. Let's find another policy Brian Fisher likes from Russia. It's going to be tough. A male teacher who raped a student gets only 30 days in jail. This is a former Montana high school teacher convicted of raping a 14-year-old female student who later committed suicide. According to her mother, the suicide was related to the trauma and stress of having been raped. The Yellowstone County judge, Todd Baugh, sentenced the perpetrator here, Dean Rambold, who's 54 years old, to 15 years in prison with all but 31 days suspended for sexual intercourse without consent. The judge then gave Rambold credit for 1 day served, reducing it from 31 days to only 30 days. The victim's mother stood up in court and yelled, "You people suck," when the sentence was delivered. I can't say, Lewis, that I disagree too much with her. When we go back to what was the judge's reasoning for this, it's not a reason we haven't heard before. The judge said that the victim was as much in control of the situation as Rambold, and that she was much older than her chronological age. When we talk about age of consent, what's the point of age of consent if the judge can just determine that the girl was kind of leading the guy on? The point of the law is that it doesn't matter what behavior the victim appears to exhibit. The age of consent is there for a reason, that below that age, the individual cannot legally consent. So I will never understand these explanations, Lewis, that, well, she really was kind of acting older than what her age on paper was, and we have to take that into consideration. I don't understand the point of a law of an age of consent if the judge just determines how old the victim was acting.
Right. It makes no sense at all. I mean, the idea behind it is that under a certain age, these people can't really make smart, logical decisions for themselves. Can some of them do it? Yes, but like you said, it's the numbers there for a reason, and it has to be followed. But also, another thing is that part of the reasoning is that this person now has to register as a sex offender, and I think some judges factor that into the equation too. That this person, his life is probably ruined because of that. They will never hold another job again, and everywhere they go, everyone will know.
Right, and certainly the life was also ruined of the girl who was raped and then committed suicide. So while I understand that you could say, well, the sentence will be less, but to go from 15 years to 31 days because of having to register as a sex offender makes absolutely no sense. A girl kills herself in part because of the repercussions of the rape. And because the judge says she was kind of older than her chronological age and she was also in control of the situation, the criminal gets 30 days. It is a very, very sad state of affairs. Let's go to your voicemails. Voicemail line, 24 hours a day. It is available to you. The phone number is 219-2-DAVID-P. Here is one voicemail about the hearing last week where a member of an elected official said that black people are poor because they eat too much chicken. It didn't really make much sense then, and I'll play that voicemail for you here.
Hi, David. Gerald calling from California. Just listened to your most recent episode, and was listening to the call or the tip from the woman supposedly talking about chicken and blacks being poor.
Yeah.
And I don't know if maybe that was just a bad clip, or you had a chance to take a shot at a dumb right-winger, but she didn't say anything about poor people. And she did say something about diabetes, which is a problem in the black community. Me being a black man, I can tell you about that. I have family members who have died from diabetes. And the diet that African Americans, especially in the South, eat is a huge contributor to that. Now, it doesn't say anything about being poor, and I don't. You brought the clip in before.
No, here's the deal. The entire hearing was about poverty, right? So this was a meeting of the state's Economic Opportunity Poverty Reduction Task Force. So it wasn't that the clip is missing something. It's that all day, the entire thing was about poverty and poverty reduction. And in that context, Vicky Marble, Republican, was saying that she was giving this monologue about how eating chicken contributes to black people being poor, and it just didn't make any sense. So that's the piece that was missing from that, is you forgot that the entire day was about poverty reduction. One more voicemail for you.
Hey, you guys, great show tonight. I want to point out the difference between Bradley Manning and Ed Snowden,
right,
and his leader Glenn Greenwald. Manning exposed actual crimes like treason, murder, and various other war crimes. Snowden and Greenwald, the only thing they did was lie and exaggerate about the legal collection of phone records.
Right. I've been making this case for a while, and when we talk about Chelsea Manning, formerly known as Bradley Manning, and her leaks, and Edward Snowden's leaks were not indicative of crimes. It may be because of laws that were passed that we don't like, but that being said, they were not indicative of crimes. They were legal surveillance programs. Chelsea Manning exposed actual crimes, and I think when we talk about the two of them, it is a fundamental difference that we cannot forget. On today's bonus show, I will tell you all about the New York City move. Today is our first day broadcasting from our new David Pakman Show headquarters in New York City. We will also talk about Lewis, his new job at a bar in Austin, Texas. And day one, he gets recognized by a fan of the David Pakman Show. DavidPakman.com/membership. Get the bonus show, support the show. See you tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.